We're back with our panel. We have Kitty Wethermann, we have Ralph Reed, and we have Pastor Lawrence White with us. And Pastor, I want to ask you quickly, when you were on the plane, what was the message that you wanted to get to people?
What keeps me up at night, Glenn, is an experience I had about 12 years ago with my two sons. We were on a research trip to Germany. I took them one bleak December afternoon out to the memorial at the Sachsenhausen concentration camp just outside Berlin. We went through the whole thing. They saw the museum. They saw the horror photos of the inmates, and two 25-year-olds who were joking and jostling got quieter and quieter as we walked through medical laboratories where grotesque experiments were performed without anesthetic because these were subhuman Jews and gypsies. Finally, we got to the crematoria, the ovens in the back. 3 days after Christmas, December the 28th, there on the ground is a wreath. I read the German inscription and translated for my sons. It said, "From the Christians of Germany, we kneel before God in bitter regret and humble repentance, and we ask his forgiveness for the death of the Jews and all the others who perished in this wretched place." Now, those boys have always been pro-life. They've never had a choice in the matter. But there, at Sachsenhausen, as they saw what can happen when the people of God fail to be the people of God.
Vote for the pocketbook and not for their faith. Ralph, I wanted to bring you in because you are a guy who, you're the boogeyman, Christian Coalition, you're the worst, you're going to be rounding up gays and anybody who's different, and you're going to be baptizing people in the basement of the White House. You are the boogeyman that everyone will say. How do you respond to that? That you just want to control everyone through faith in government?
Well, you know, Glenn, we've seen this movie before. I mean, in 1994, at about this time, 16 years ago, almost to the day, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee held a news conference and said, you can't elect a Republican Congress because Christians will be in charge of the government. Boo, aren't you scared? The result was 54 House seats, 10 Senate seats, including 2 switches, first Republican Congress in 40 years, and yes, we had the ability to see our public policy goals realized. What were they? A $500 per child tax credit to lower the crushing tax burden on the American family. Banning partial birth abortion, which 72% of the American people supported, and which Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a pro-choice Democrat, says was infanticide. Balancing the budget for the first time in 40 years. Welfare reform, moving people from dependency and multi-generational poverty to individual self-initiative and dignity. That's what we wanted. It was the mainstream American values. And what's really dangerous, Glenn, isn't faith. Faith isn't a threat to democracy. It's essential to democracy. What's dangerous is when people of faith are told to be silent and shut up. In the confirmation, I've got a man of faith nominated to the Supreme Court who is asked by the Judiciary Committee, are you sure you can sit on the Supreme Court and separate your religious beliefs from your rulings? Now, I didn't make that up. It actually happened. When Samuel Alito was nominated to the Supreme Court, Senator Richard Dermott of Illinois said, how can you, as a Roman Catholic and someone who's pro-life, sit on the highest court in the land? Glenn, when that's going on in America, it's scary.
Hey, here's the thing. America, as I see it, church is for Sunday. God, and as the founder said, nature's laws from nature's God, is every day. That's why I believe we have to learn correct principles, and then man will govern himself. When we all understand, you don't do that because it's wrong for this reason or this reason, then we manage ourselves, and we don't need somebody to nudge us or to rule over us. Back with audience questions next.
Exclusive insight on the Republicans' new economic agenda, plus reaction from Majority Leader Steny Hoyer on...
Has a question. Go ahead.
I believe that putting the prayer back in our schools, putting God back in our country, and inspiring people to find the courage to stand up for God and country would turn our country around. Would you stand for that? How would you do? What would you do?
I absolutely would restore what we did in 1962. Reverse what we did in 1962.
Right. Put the prayer back in.
If you look at the problems that we had in the country, they went almost straight line up after we did that. Yes.
My question is for Kitty. As I listen to your story and I hear you say that you recognize things that are happening now and they kind of make you wince because you've seen this before. To me, the difference in your story of the past and ours of the future may be not so much what happened, but what we did about it. So my question to you is, looking back, what would you have done rather than just, maybe letting it happen? Can you see anything that you might actually encourage us to do in response?
There's a lot of things you can do. I'm a lobbyist. You can introduce legislation. You have to be very patient.
It actually goes back to what you said. Vote.
Exactly.
We have 30. Your people elected Hitler with 98%.
Yes.
If you go to principles as a Christian,
yeah.
The Germans voted their patriotism. They voted their pocketbooks. They didn't vote their conscience. If Christians in this country will vote their conscience, everything will be different.
I can't believe that we elect people of faith, of all faiths, elect people that we know are lying to us, are not living decent lives. They represent us. They represent us. Well, okay, does that represent us? I think in many cases it does. We must stop that, Ralph.
Glenn, and a lot of it boils down to getting organized based on eternal values. If business is allowed to organize as the Chamber of Commerce, and labor is allowed to organize in the form of unions, but then they go to people of faith and says, you're not allowed to do that. Stay in your stained glass ghetto.
Wrong.
When they stay in their stained glass ghetto, they take away everything else, and then they come after you.
You've got to stand up together as a coalition of people of faith. Yes, go ahead.
There seem to be a great deal of similarities between early Nazi socialism and what we're going through right now in this country. I mean, what is the answer? I mean, how do we turn that back?
Well, right now we are very blessed that this is an election year. Educate the voters. It's already happening. So we can take at least the U.S. House back and hopefully the Senate